We want to welcome you to 5 Steps to Building a Sales Team. My name is Ginger Bell, and with me today I have Andrea Gagliardi. Andrea is calling in from Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I understand you have windstorms there today and have been having internet issues, so that's why we're having a few problems today. But we want to welcome you all to the call and apologize for being late today. A couple of things. First of all, I am recording this, and we will edit out our challenges that we had here. But on your screen, you can also see a link to get a copy of the slide deck that we're going through. And then we've also created a new hire checklist. And so just kind of a little checklist to go through to be able to help you through the process of going through hiring. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go through a couple of housekeeping issues. We have some upcoming webinars that I want you to be aware of that we're doing. We've been doing a series of webinars of becoming independent. We're actually, for the summer, kind of moving into a little bit of more different things like today, just talking about what are some of the strategies you need in building your team, some of the programs. We're talking about purchase power with FHA loans coming up on June 21st, and then busting some VA home loan misconceptions. So that will be on the 26th, and that's with our partner Finance of America. So you can hop on to independentoriginator.com and register for those. We are doing this on a Zoom meeting, which is similar to a GoToWebinar meeting, but a little bit different. And so you all can hear us. We can't hear you, but we're glad you can hear us now. And so we do want to be able to have you ask questions, though. So there's a couple of different ways you can do that. You can type in the Q&A panel if you have questions, or also in your chat box, which you all have figured that one out. So, and we want to welcome you. Obviously, you can hear us. Normally, I would do a, hey, can you hear us? But obviously, you can. So with that, I will introduce you to your speakers today. My name is Ginger Bell. I'm an education specialist with GoTo Training. I do a lot of webinars like this and education throughout the mortgage industry. And with me today, I have Andrea Gagliardi. Andrea is with Summit Mortgage Training, and I've had the pleasure of knowing Andrea for, gosh, probably about 5 years now, Andrea. Mm-hmm. She has a background in education, has over 18 years of mortgage industry experience, both as an originator, branch manager, processor, you name it, she's done it. She is the owner and director and founder of Summit Mortgage Training. She's also the author of Mortgage Fundamentals, which is an introductory training course for mortgage professionals getting started in the industry. And she has created a series of professional development courses. Her company offers both NMLS pre-licensing and continuing education courses for all 50 states. So she knows a lot about education. And that's one of the things that is so important when you are putting a new team together, is to think about what you need to do to get them trained. And so we're going to start out with step 1 in our 5 steps to building a sales team. And that is to determine the type of team that you need. And Andrea, I was just in Denver yesterday at the AIM Summit, and that was one of the things that was a big topic of conversation, especially for those of you who are branching out, going on your own. Where do you get started? So if you have an existing team, maybe you're adding to it, need to figure out what that looks like, or if you're just getting started, then what should you do to be able to put that team together? And so, step 1 is really kind of taking that step back and looking at who do you need on your team. And so, Andrea, the first thing obviously they need to do is to just do that and determine who they need on their team. And that is kind of looking at the tasks that they need to have someone do to help them reach their goal. And most people think that they need to hire an LO first, but really they kind of need to back up a little bit and look at those activities that they're doing within their own day. And then also, what are the activities you want someone else to do? So if we can go through that, and I'm just saying, Sally's saying you sound different than normal. The other person is more in the background. So Andrea, maybe you need to speak up a little bit. Let us know how the sound is.
Okay.
We want to make sure that you can hear okay. So the first thing they need to do is determine their team structure. So what are some of the things that they need to look at for that?
Well, I think this is really different for everyone. Everyone runs their business differently. So for many branch managers, bringing in a licensed loan assistant, somebody who can multitask, help with both loan files that are in process and with marketing, that may be a cost-effective way to free their time to focus primarily on generating new business and bringing in new business.
Right. So really looking at who does what and starting with then, marketing. What are you doing for marketing? Who's creating and generating your marketing? What are you using for CRM systems? And what follow-up are you using with that? And who's managing that? And then lead tracking and the leads you have coming in, you don't have to be buying leads to have leads, but where does that lead come in? Are you putting it into CRM? Who's doing that? And then once you have those leads and they're converting to application, then who's completing that application? What happens next? Who's doing what in that process? And then once that application comes in, getting into pipeline management. Who's doing the file up? Who is communicating? What are they communicating? Going through that entire process. And, if you're one person, especially getting started, you're managing, you're doing generating leads, you're doing your application, you're doing pipeline management, and then you have your long term. So, what are you doing to keep top of mind, not only with your borrowers, potential borrowers, but your real estate agents? And so that takes you into your real estate partners or your other partners, whether they're financial planners or builders, or whoever you're working with, who is communicating and building the relationship. So I always suggest the first thing is to really take a step back and look at you and what you want to do in terms of your team. So some of the best teams that manage this do this, and they have a team, and they begin by looking at, okay, what are the activities that you're doing? So, type in there into your chat or your Q&A and kind of list out for me a couple of things that you think that you're doing right now that are your A priority. So what's the number one things that you're doing, and then that's important as far as your business, and then also listing out your B priority. So if you take and just make a to-do list of everything that you're doing throughout the day, and take and divide those into what are your A priorities, and then what are your B priorities. So what are the things that you can take and teach somebody else to do? I also recommend looking at what is paying you. Obviously we know applications that are converting into funded files is how you get paid, right? So what are the activities you need to do to make sure you nurture and continue that? But then also, what are the things that you can hand off to someone else? Once you do that and you have those divided into your A and B priorities, things that you do, whether it's doing presentations with your realtors, taking applications with your borrowers, what are your A priorities, and then what are the things that you can put off to someone else and train them to do that. And that takes building a training strategy. What does that look like? Giving your team the training to move maybe into originating. And of course, obviously remember that only licensed LOs can take applications and negotiate rates. But there's a lot of things that they can do that can help you through the process to create this team. So once you do that, it's just that. It's building a process and then creating and building that team. And, Andrea, when I first got started in the industry, and I've always been on the wholesale side, so I was an account executive. And so for me, being an account executive, it was doing just that same thing. What are the activities that I need to do to build my business? And then what can I hand off to an assistant, a marketing assistant, advertising assistant, someone to schedule calls, things like that, but create that process. Once you have that process in place, then you can move on to actually hiring your LOs. The reason I recommend that is because the support you give to your LOs as an independent originator, if you can build some of those supports, like if you have a marketing person and if you have a processor, or even if you're doing contract processing, it gives them that support to go out and do what they do best. Now, this is your area, and Andrea, you have trained hundreds and hundreds as far as becoming an LO, and we're going to talk a little bit about getting them through the SAFE Act test, especially for new LOs, or if we have a lot of LOs that are transitioning over from maybe being with a credit union or a bank and they went to being registered. So what's the first thing that they need to do for hiring their LOs? And we started out with really looking at, okay, do you want someone experienced or do you want someone new? So really, what are the things they need to look at for being able to hire someone that has that experience and then someone that's new? So what kind of originator you're looking for, and then creating that plan to build your team, size, timelines, volume. So let's look at the pros and cons. And Andrea, I'm going to let you cover this because you have been through this with so many. Between pros and cons for experienced and versus new. So let's just look at the pros right now.
So when we talk about hiring new or experienced loan officers, there are definitely benefits to each. Some of the pros or the positives of hiring experienced loan officers include that they don't need much training. Depending on their time in the industry, when they come to you, they at least have some idea of what they're doing. So their learning curve is definitely lessened. Most of the time when they're experienced, they're going to come to you with some kind of a database. Again, depending on their time in the business, they may come with an established database of past clients, and that database can be marketed to for future business. A referral network, especially if they were a purchase-driven loan officer at their last employer, they probably come to you with some degree of established referral sources. And an existing pipeline. This definitely is a double-edged sword. While it's a pro when a loan officer comes to you, with an existing pipeline, it can be a double-edged sword. Once a loan's in process, it's difficult to move it to a new company. Sometimes that crosses ethical and legal lines that maybe we better leave them uncrossed. So some of the pros of hiring new loan originators include it's a clean slate. You can train them to your culture. And that's really a big one. It's often minimalized, but in deliberately building your business, you have an opportunity to really create your ideal work environment, sort of your mortgage utopia. And when you bring on someone with no previous experience, it really allows you to acclimate them to your ideal way of doing things. You can mold them into whatever works best for your business. New loan officers come to you and they're enthusiastic. They're excited about the industry. They're not jaded. They're not bringing along a lot of what I call bad beat stories. They don't bring a lot of negativity from previous jobs. When they're trained properly, their enthusiasm can be channeled into resilience and perseverance and all kinds of good things. New loan officers come with a lot of new ideas. They don't really know the old ways of doing things, so they're focused on new ways and new ideas. They have a lot of creativity, and especially early in their careers, they're willing to try out new things. So that's definitely a pro for a new loan officer. And a big one is they come with no bad habits. This goes back to the negativity and focusing on the bad B stories, as well as the bad habits with, kind of at my old company, we did it this way. When we're trying to grow, the bad habits of people we hire can really pull us backwards instead of moving us forward. And new LOs are accepting of our culture and our way of doing things because they really don't have anything else to compare it to. So they're really open to that. And ultimately, they're eager. At the end of the day, the new loan officer is eager. They're excited to learn. They want to build. Our job as managers is to channel that eagerness and that enthusiasm. And we need to do that properly. We need to do it intentionally. So that is really the pros of the experienced and the new hiring new loan originators.
Right. So let's look at the cons then, because obviously there's both the pros and cons. So same kind of scenario, experienced versus new.
Yeah, we need to look at the cons too if we're going to be realistic and balanced. So some of the cons with hiring an experienced person is the bad habits. We talked a little bit about how sometimes experienced loan officers come to us with bad habits, whether it's just a general negative attitude Maybe they have poor follow-up or poor communication. Sometimes that experienced LO can weigh us down more than they lift us up, which is not the intention. A lot of times experienced LOs cost more. And that's where the real negative of that LO with the existing pipeline comes in. A lot of times they're going to be looking for a pipeline buyout or a sign-on bonus. And what they're doing is creating an expense before they've even generated $1 for you. So that can definitely be a negative when you're hiring an experienced loan officer. The next three, not coachable, their attitudes, they may not be adaptable to your culture. They kind of all go together. When an experienced loan officer comes with really strong opinions about how things were done or should be done, sometimes it's difficult to overcome, and it's difficult to push past that attitude. Sometimes you have to question whether somebody's negativity and the impact of that on your office is really worth the volume of loans that they generate, the business that they bring through the door. There are also some cons to hiring new loan officers. The most obvious one is they come with no experience. Depending on the training that they had before they came to you, they most likely have a huge learning curve to overcome. I think we all know that the 20-hour pre-licensing course doesn't do a fabulous job of preparing new loan officers to pre-qualify people, to read a credit report, or to document a loan file. So they definitely will need help with the mechanics of originating loans when they land with you. Another con is that it does take time to establish referral partners. Even with the amazing powers of internet marketing, mortgage originations is still primarily a relationship-driven business. It takes time to build relationships and to establish the trust and confidence necessary to create a solid referral partner. It also takes time to learn the guidelines. Because every loan is different, it's hard for a new loan officer to know and apply the guidelines to different scenarios. There are definitely resources to help them with that and to train them on the guidelines. But in a lot of cases, experience is the best teacher. And if you have a new LO who isn't afraid to go out there and get their nose bloody, they're going to learn the guidelines pretty quickly, just by making the mistakes. So they may get frustrated. This is a tough business. And in the beginning, a new loan officer is going to hear no a lot more than they will hear yes. They're going to hear it from potential referral partners. They're going to hear it from clients. They're going to hear it from underwriters, and they're going to hear a lot of no's. So sometimes that can be really tough for even the most eager and enthusiastic loan officer, that they need to have some resiliency, because it's easy to get frustrated with all the no's. And another con is it does take time to train them. When you're bringing on new loan officers, whether it's one at a time or a group of them all at once, it's going to take some time to train them properly. There's definitely a period of time that I call the tap on the shoulder syndrome, where you're asked question after question, day after day. And some of this can be reduced with a structured training program in place. One thing when you're training new loan officers, it's important to pay attention to the questions that new loan officers are asking. If they're asking the same question over and over again, that's when it really becomes time to evaluate what you're doing, and whether they're putting forth the effort to retain what you're training them on. But there definitely is that training learning curve when you're hiring a new loan officer.
Exactly. And, this is what I call the big elephant in the room. And so we have a listed, current pool of existing LOs that's growing smaller, obviously. And so when you look at the current age of the average loan officer right now, and it's actually gone down a little bit, right?
Yeah, the average loan officer is now 47. It's actually down from a few years ago when we were all talking about how the average loan officer was 54. And I think that this number shows that the industry as a whole has had some success with bringing younger people in. There was a big push for this, even going back a couple years ago. We started talking about how we need to be recruiting younger people into the industry. They just weren't coming. So I think that this number shows that we have had some success with doing that.
And that really brings us to the topic of what are we doing to be able to get the next gen into our industry. And, really in going through this process, and Andrea, you and I spent some time, preparing this slide deck and really thinking about, okay, what is it that a company can do to be able to prepare someone to become a loan originator? And so it kind of goes back to what we started with. What are the activities that you're doing? can you take some of those activities and create a position and pay someone to be able to get started? And maybe it's with your, local school. And I know, Andrea, for years, you did a lot of training for individuals who were displaced workers, right?
Absolutely.
And so, part of that whole process was getting them trained and giving them the experience. And I know you received some grants to be able to do that and to put people through and then put them into placement. And you worked with a lot of schools, right, in your area?
I worked with a lot of schools and I worked with a lot of employers. So the employers, were able to come into my school and sort of not custom order a loan officer, but we could tailor our training, to what they were looking for specifically in a new loan officer. Sometimes they were hiring new loan officer assistants. Sometimes they wanted, inside people or outside people. So we were able to do a little bit of customization with our training in that degree. But yeah, we spent a lot of time taking people who were collecting unemployment in the state of New Jersey. A lot of them came from the casino industry or the car industry. And we were able to, get them trained, get them through their 20-hour pre-licensing. We did exam prep with them. They went off and took their exam. And then once they were licensed, we placed them in with employers.
Right. So a lot of that, and that's not necessarily something you're going to do in your job, in your business, but if you look at, again, backing up, what are those activities that you're doing right now that you can have someone do, whether it's through an internship program or through an assistant, and to be able to start introducing them into the industry and then have them go through the training while they're learning at the same time. And so it benefits you because it's going to help you be able to get some of the tasks done that you need to get done. And then it's also going to you're going to find out if they're a right fit for you. And that really brings us to step 2, which is to make sure that you are hiring the right type of person. And, Andrea, you mentioned something interesting as far as different industries. If you look at, and I know I do some coaching for some new LOs with a client that they have hired some individuals who came out of insurance, and they've received some great training, sales training in insurance as far as building relationships. And so they're able to go out and build those relationships with realtors. They just need to learn about the products and the things like that. And so, really looking at what are the skill sets that individual has. So if you're looking at someone that you want to hire as an LO or groom as an LO, then you need to look at what is the loan officer's job. And so really, Andrea, it's like you look at that at the end of the day, what is the loan officer's job?
Well, really, the primary job of the originator is to connect with referral sources and to connect with clients and to originate loans. I know that, today's regulatory environment, there's so much emphasis on compliance, but it feels like so many tasks have been pushed back onto the loan officer. So it has become hard for a loan officer to focus primarily on bringing in new business. Their focus is sort of split between the need to develop relationships and the need to meet with clients and to bring in loan business, and then split with the dotting the I's, the crossing the T's, the data entry, the uploading and scanning of pay stubs and bank statements and all that stuff. So it's, it has become a little bit more difficult for a loan officer to focus specifically on generating leads, or even primarily on generating leads.
Right. And then very important to consider your culture. So what is the culture that you have that's existing or you want to create? So looking at, are you high energy? Are they going to be working on their own? Are they going to be working remote? So do you need to have somebody that's self-disciplined? Or are you building a team? Also, do you have an onboarding plan? And I think that is so important when you are looking at hiring, whether it's one person, 2 people, 10 people. Have an onboarding plan. and make sure you have that laid out. And that's one of the things that we've created is your new hire checklist. So think about the things that you're going to be doing and giving them and what you want to create in that culture, because in very high percentage as far as individuals that end up leaving because there's not an onboarding process. So making sure you guide them through that plan. And it's not just a one-day plan. I mean, it's a matter of, okay, so we're doing the first week. This is what we're doing the second week. But put some time into doing that. And then do you have the training in place or at least a resource? And obviously, Summit Mortgage Training is a great resource for that. And so, make sure that you have all of that in place. Very important to have that set up ahead of time. Also look at what are the characteristics of a sales professional. So, what are you looking for with that person? You want them to have great energy. You want them to have a positive attitude. You want them to be motivated. And that's not just for originators. That's also for your, if you're hiring a marketing assistant or a sales assistant or a processor too. Right, Andrea?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Really, like I said earlier, you are creating your ideal culture, your ideal mortgage utopia. So everybody, from the person who's answering the phones down to, your top producing originator, it's an opportunity to find the right fit for your office.
Right. And so I'm getting a question typed in. How do you get a copy of the new hire checklist? We are posting it in your chat panel. So there's a link there. And then I'm also going to send out a follow-up email. So we'll make sure to get that to you so you can click on that and have that list. But it is actually in your chat box if you want to pick that up there, or we'll send up a follow-up email too. The other thing is to make sure that you are not hiring the first person. Find the right person. Sometimes, like, I'm in the process of buying a new car right now. And so it's exhausting looking at cars, and it's not my favorite thing. My husband loves it, not my favorite thing. But I want to make sure I'm not buying the right car. So it takes some research and it takes some time. And it's like, I want to be able to get something, because I tend to have cars for a long period of time. I don't know about you all. But spend the time doing it. Don't hire the first person. And maybe it is the first person that you meet that's good. But is it great? And so, make sure you put some thought into it as far as who you're looking for, what are the characteristics, and do they fit into your culture? So once you have that person in place, and again, whether it's your sales assistant, whether it's your processor, whether it's a new originator, get them trained. And the nice thing about if you look at building a team and you're, having the sales assistants or the processors, have them go through that process, have them go through training, work with Andrea's company, and get them the experience, the education that they need. First of all, you're going to know that they're going to have a very good idea of the entire process, which is what Mortgage Fundamentals does. But then you also know that if it's someone that wants to, starting out in doing some marketing for you, and they want to, maybe get into originating, or they're not sure, it's a great way to find out. So getting them to pass that SAFE Act test is very important, obviously, before they become an originator. And so we've got some statistics here as far as passing the SAFE Act test. I know, Andrea, you do a lot of coaching on this. And these are current pass rates out of the NMLS, right?
Yeah, this is as of March 31st of 2018. So these are the most current that are available. So what the NMLS does is they look back at the previous 2 years of test takers, and they gauge them on people who took the test the first time, how many tests were taken, how many passed, and the pass rate. So what we see with that 59% pass rate is, for the first time since the SAFE Act was passed, that pass rate has actually dropped. Before, we kind of hovered around 64, 65% passed the first time out, and we've dropped to 59%. And then if you don't pass the test the first time and you take it again, only 43% of those people are passing the test. I really think that what these numbers are showing, and they're illustrating to us, is that the 20-hour pre-licensing course is just not enough to begin an effective career. The 20-hour material was created at a time when the SAFE Act was passed. Everybody had to take it, but at that time, everybody had some industry knowledge, and that was true then, but it's really not true today. In fact, a lot of the students that are taking the pre-licensing course have never even bought a house, so that's how little that they know.
Wow.
They just don't have the knowledge of the industry. So really, I think what we need is for the new loan officers to establish the base of knowledge before they even attempt to tackle the 20-hour pre-licensing course. Because what happens is when they do that, when they have that base of knowledge, they move from trying to memorize enough facts to just get through the test to actually understanding what they're learning. And then they're able to apply it when they go to take that exam. If I memorize, enough facts, but then they ask them to me in a different way when I go to sit for my exam, I don't know what they're asking and I can't apply it. But if I have that base of knowledge before I start, it doesn't matter what they ask me or how they ask it. I understand it. I can sort of take the material and move it around and plug it into whatever the question is. So I think we need to have that base of knowledge, that there's a need for that course in the marketplace today to establish the basic knowledge, and also to kind of direct new loan officers on how to actually do the job. They need to know how to pre-qualify. They need to know how to read a credit report, loan program guidelines, all of those things that really are not effectively taught in the 20-hour course, but they're seriously important to actually doing the job.
Right. So we also have a pool of originators that when the SAFE Act passed, we know many people went into working for a bank or working for a credit union or a community bank. And the SAFE Act is split between our state licensed, which is what brokers and non-delegated and retail loan officers are. So they're licensed, they have their pre-licensure education, their testing, and then their continuing education requirement. Then we also, under the SAFE Act, have LOs that are registered. And so if you work for a credit union or a federally chartered bank, then you are just registered. So that means you don't have to go through the pre-licensing requirements, you don't have to take the test, and you don't have to take continuing education. It's something we fought during the SAFE Act when it was passed for that not to have happened, but it did. And so there's a lot of originators that are very good originators working for these banks and credit unions who want to come out. But the challenge, Andrea, is as soon as they go to take that test, then their employer is alerted. And so it's like, why are you taking the test? What's going on? Mm-hmm. And so there has been new legislation that was passed. It's part of the S-2155, the economic, and I don't know, let's have 10 more, names for a bill that's passed, but it was a small portion of that. And what it does is it gives a period of time, 120 days, where an originator who is registered at bank can actually move to become state licensed and still originate. Because right now, as it stands, they cannot originate until they pass that test. And so they can't move, anything over. Obviously, pipelines, they have relationships, they just can't originate until they pass that test. And so what this new legislation does, it gives that window that they can do that. Now, the challenge is we're not going to actually see implementation on this for a maximum of 18 months is how the legislation is written. And the reality is, the way the SAFE Act is written is each state has to actually go and rewrite their law that's part of the SAFE Act in order to adopt this. So we're not going to see this happen anytime soon. And I know I've gotten a lot of emails asking about it. And Andrea, I know you have too. So it's good news that it's coming, but it's not coming real soon. And I think it's important for everyone on this call to know, because if you are looking at someone who is with a bank, they still have to go through the licensing process right now. But something to, put in the back of your head, hey, in about a year and a half, that's going to change for us. But important to know that as well. So having those resources is so important. So if you have someone new that's coming on board, and type in the chat panel if you are hiring LOs right now, who need to go through and take the license, because I'd like to know as far as who on the call is actually in that process right now, or if you are looking at hiring new LOs, that you do want to go through training. So if anyone's doing that, say, yes, I'm hiring, or I'm thinking about it, put it in the chat box for me so we have an idea. But putting those resources together and knowing that they're available is so important. So Andrea, at Summit Mortgage Training, tell me about some of the things that you offer to be able to help.
Well, our primary focus, our main flagship course is Mortgage Fundamentals. And that is the course that's really designed to be taken prior to the 20th hour SAFE Act material. That course lays the foundation. It literally starts with what is a mortgage and what is a mortgage originator. So it is designed for people brand new to the industry to really give them exactly what it says, the fundamentals of mortgage originations. So it walks them through how to pre-qualify someone, how to take a complete loan application, and then how to document that loan application. We cover underwriting guidelines for conventional FHA and VA loans. We touch a little bit on USDA, reverse mortgages, and non-traditional. We talk about appraisals. We talk about credit. We teach mortgage math, and we teach all the math manually. So they're going to be able to do the math, calculate a payment, calculate closing costs, calculate everything they need to do manually with a four-function calculator. So it really is designed to get the person entering the industry comfortable with the mechanics, comfortable with the terminology. And then when they go from that course is about 40 hours of content. Some people get through it faster, some take a little longer. So it really depends on your learning style. It's online, it's self-paced. So when they finish that course, then they go to their 20 hours, and what happens is they actually understand what they're learning. They can relate that sort of higher level 20-hour material to something that they've just learned in mortgage fundamentals, and it makes sense. You know, they hit the 20 hours already knowing what a closing disclosure is, a loan estimate is, the 1003. They know that stuff, and all the laws that we're trying to teach them that govern these things. You know, right now, people are taking the 20 hours without that base of knowledge, and they're struggling. They are. The pass rate shows it. So with mortgage fundamentals in front of the 20 hours, they're actually understanding it. I do have a couple different branches pretty local to me, just in and around Philadelphia, that use it every time they hire someone new. And so far, we have 100% pass rate first time on the test, and not one of the people who have taken mortgage fundamentals the 20 hours and then taken their test, not one of them had any prior industry knowledge at all.
Wow. Yeah. And I've had the same experience with individuals I've referred to you to, Andrea, that have no industry experience at all and go through the Mortgage Master and then go through the 20 hours and then take the test. And I've seen them pass with over an 80%. So if you are looking at hiring, and I'm not saying nobody's typing in. So first of all, let me know that you all can still hear us. But let me know where you are in your hiring process. I mean, obviously you're on this webinar because you're looking at building your team. So, you know, where are you? Are you planning on hiring in the next 6 months, in the next year, in the next 3 months? Are you not sure? I mean, just, type in your Q&A or your chat box and let me know where you are in the process. Thank you, Sean. So you're looking at planning on hiring in the next 3 to 6 months. Okay. Because that helps us too, as far as helping you to be able to look at, okay, what are the tools and things you need? And that's the other thing too. What do you need? There's no training out there for, really, I'm a new branch manager, so how do I go about hiring and what do I need to do for onboarding? So we want to know some of the resources you need as well. That will help you and support you, not just in hiring, but also be a better manager, be a better leader, be a better planner, having that onboarding process. So, things like the new hire checklist, is that helpful to us, to you? Are there other things that we can build for you? Let us know. So let me know, yes or no, new hire checklist, yes, that's something that I can use. Onboarding plan, if that's something that would be good for you, type in the chat box, let me know, yes or no. That would be something I'd be interested in, onboarding plan. So, those are the kind of things that we need to know in order to be able to help you build some of those resources. So the next thing is that I recommend is build a sales plan that will produce results. So don't, just hire LOs, just, and a lot of managers I've talked to, it's like, I'm just going to throw a bunch of bodies against this and I'm going to see what works. And so you end up with some LOs that maybe they're producing, 1 or 2 a month. You've got some that are maybe producing 5 million a month. But if you don't have a plan in place, then it's hard to be able to really manage that. So you need to look at, what are you doing as far as taking risk in your business? And you must take that risk in order to be able to get to the next level. So where are you pushing yourself? Where are you growing your business at? Can you afford a full-time assistant or a part-time assistant? What is on their checklist of things to do? What is on your plate that you need to stop doing that will free up your time? And guys, I go through this in my business. Andrea, you go through this in your business. I just hired an assistant, and I have a couple of projects. Like, I was doing things like, I don't need to be doing this. And so, okay, what are the activities that I'm doing? What are the skill sets I'm looking for? And you have to slow down and take that time to say, okay, if I hire someone to do this and I can pay them this amount of money, that's going to free up my time to where I can actually go and make more money. So you have to look at, what is your time worth? So, what's on your plate that you need to stop doing that will free up your time? And then how much more can you produce if you have a team? Really looking at that. And I think real estate agents do a very good job of building teams. And they start out with that marketing. So if you look at the structure of what real estate agents do, a lot of it is exactly the same thing, and then groom someone up. The other thing is, what are you doing that is repeatable and duplicatable? So if there's something that you're doing over and over again that you can train somebody to do and then they can take over, that can free up some of your time, then those are the things that you want to look at. And yes, it is a challenge when you're saying, I can't afford to pay anyone, I'm just getting started. But sometimes you can't afford not to pay someone. And so again, it's looking at that. Are the tasks that you're doing repeatable and duplicatable? And maybe it's an outsourced resource. Maybe it's sharing a marketing person, maybe it's having somebody part-time. There are so many. In fact, I was talking to someone the other day who has resources of individuals whose kids are gone off to college and they haven't worked for a long time, and now they want to they want to work but not really full time. It's like, wow, that would be a really great person to get on board to help you with some of your marketing. So looking at that, I think, is important when you're looking at building your team. So break it down. Full-time assistant, hire for the job, don't hire for the person. That's why I say, make a list of what those activities are. And as I said, I had to do that in my own business to be able to say, okay, what are the activities? What does that person look like? Write the job description and then go and find that person. Processing. Are you going to do it in-house? Are you going to outsource it? There's lots of outsourcing options. So looking at that. And then looking for your first originator. You need to have your same values. You need to make sure that you're aligned. You want to hire someone who can manage the client expectations to your expectations as well. You want them to have the skill set to be accountable. You want them to be a good problem solver, and you want them to be a thinker. So all of those things are so important. And then checklists. I'm a huge checklist person. That's why I say, let me know what checklist you get, because I work off a checklist all the time. So create your checklist and train to the job, hire for the skill set, and then build your production level. And so those are the things that you want as far as building a team. So when you look at creating that strategy, and I know, Andrea, you have worked with so many companies for them to be able to hire LOs. And when you were looking at, when you've trained all these individuals, building that job description is so important. So what are some of the best advice you can give as far as creating that strategy and being able to find the right person?
Well, I think that when you are creating a job description, when I do it myself, I always start with the end. What is it exactly that I want this person to accomplish for me, with me? You take your list of tasks that need to be done, and you're putting in that job description everything that you want to delegate out. The things that aren't your higher level tasks, or the things that aren't going to accomplish you money on a daily basis, but still need to be done. They're still important. You know, what we talked about earlier as the B priorities. You create the job description focusing on those tasks, and then you look for the right person to fit that bill, to fill that role.
Perfect. And so, Arthur, thank you so much for sharing. You're setting up a new branch, hiring the next 3 to 6 months. You're looking for an onboarding plan and then some standard operating procedures. So that's great information for us to know, because those are the things that we can help to develop for you. So I thank you for that. And if anyone else has a list as far as things that it's like, okay, gosh, I could really use this, by all means, let us know that as well. Because that all goes with the plan. So what are your goals? Where are you going? What is your journey? You know, what is your lead management plan? What are you doing for your follow-up with your prospects, with your clients, with your agents, with your borrowers? People don't think about this when you go into hiring, but if you have a plan and you hire to that plan, it makes it a lot easier. And then putting all those pieces, like Arthur, you said, having the onboarding plan, your SOPs with your standard operating procedures, the things that you need, it makes it so much easier to be able to create that wow experience. And not just that wow experience for, you know, your partners and your borrowers, but that wow experience for your team. And so, you know, my husband just recently started with a new company, and they had a meeting. It was their anniversary meeting, and they'd started the company like 8 years ago. And the culture in the company was so great. And it was interesting to see how many people had been referred. It's like, oh, my friend works here, and so I started working here. Because when you create that culture, your team will want other people to work with them. So you want to create that wow experience, not just for your customers, but for your staff. And so taking a step back and establishing what that looks like is important. So you've kind of learned I'm a checklist person. I know, Andrea, you're a checklist person. So it's creating that repeatable hiring and training process. So developing that onboarding checklist, creating that plan, developing your strategy, setting time aside to train and onboard. And this is another thing, being an entrepreneur, that's so important. Many years ago, in another lifetime, which was, I don't know, like 25 years ago, I owned a Subway franchise. And so, you know, I had to do all of that as far as, okay, what's the onboarding plan? What's the training plan? But I had to take time and put time aside to be able to train and do onboarding. And so, you know, I was fortunate to have managers at my Subways, but to get them started, I had to put the time aside to do that. And so the as hard as it is to do that, when you put that time into it, you will see the results on the other side. But you have to do that. And then look to outsource your training and your coaching where it makes sense. You don't have to do it all. You know, Andrea's company does it as far as the mortgage fundamentals. I know you do some coaching on a very limited basis. You have some clients you'll do some coaching with. And so, you know, look for those resources to be able to build some of those as well, because that's so important. So we went through this before. It's the same list. Who does what? Go through this. This is in the slide deck, so you can go through this, take the time, and go through this list. Who does what for marketing? Who does what for your CRM, your lead tracking, your application, your pipeline management, your long-term nurturing, and your partners? Spend the time to go through that. And you look at your marketing. So, you know, what are you doing for your marketing? You have your realtor marketing. That can be handing out flyers, going to events, you know, telling them about programs, sending out email marketing, and that's both to your new and your existing partners, doing presentations, doing meetups, doing open houses. Those are all the things that you do in your realtor marketing. So you want to think about that. What can you hand off, and what can you make repeatable? And then you have your borrower marketing. So what are you doing for email marketing there, for presentations, for meetups, for follow-up? All of those kind of things are important, because your marketing is the one foundation that you have. And so, you know, presence is so important right now. That's the thing that I'm hearing over and over again. It's like when people are looking for homes, they start on the web, and we're seeing that as far as looking for originators. So having your homepage, creating a presence, creating your media, creating your social outposts, having your CRM. What does that have to do with hiring? Because that's everything you do. So I want you to think about not just hiring LOs, but think about everything that's happening with your team and what are the things you need to do in order to organize that and either outsource it or hire to it. Because if you create those resources to be able to help and support your LO, that becomes a value proposition in what you're doing for recruiting. So, when you have a whole team together, then you can say, hey, this is your team and we're going to help and support you. And, here's the technology we're using and here's the CRM we're using and we're going to give you that support. Because I can tell you, LOs are not getting that in a lot of places. And just because you're an independent originator doesn't mean you can't have this. There's a lot of tools and resources that you can have that are available. And if there's something you need, let us know, because those are things that we can help to be able to find those resources and put them together. And that's part of the whole Becoming Independent webinar series that I created, is to be able to find some of those as well. So number 5 then on our 5 steps to building a sales team is to give your team the tools that they need to succeed. And just like I said, that it becomes your value proposition. So how many of you right now are using a CRM platform? And that's a customer relationship management platform. There are a lot. There's Top of Mind out there. Let me know what you're using. If you're using something, type it in the Q&A or the panel for the chat box as to what it is that you're using. Infusionsoft, Salesforce, Top of Mind, Total Expert. Top of Mind and Total Expert are 2 in the industry. Infusionsoft is a CRM that I'm certified, that I have clients that I put on. Salesforce, I know, is a really big one. Sean, you're using Velocify. I've heard that one before too. And I'm hearing, can you propose a free but useful CRM? So, sometimes with free, I can tell you kind of get what you pay for. So there's good CRMs out there. It depends on what you're looking for. So honestly, my favorite CRM is within the industry, Top of Mind and Total Expert. They are not free. They do cost a little bit. Infusionsoft is one that's affordable. It's still going to cost you probably $100 a month, but it creates those repeatable things. And so if you're interested in something like that, we can, throw a marketing a webinar together. Let me know. Yes, interested in marketing, and we can put something together as far as resources with you as well. But having that CRM is so important, because if you have a CRM, and again, you have a repeatable action, then you can put into a CRM and it becomes a set it and forget it. And so that's very important to do that. I have helped some of my clients put together CRMs through Infusionsoft. So it's a repeatable action. We have a mortgage marketing in a box that you get that just becomes a package. If you're interested, you can find out information at Next Step Ninja. Infusionsoft has a little handout there, and I'm happy to answer any questions for you on that as well. So you can check that out. If you don't have a CRM, you should have a CRM, because it makes your life a whole lot easier. If you're looking at building your sales team, you want to build your sales team around making selling simple for them. So you want to start by identifying what you're doing that you can hire out or outsource out. Use the right tools to manage and create those wow experiences. Again, it's not just the external experience, it's the internal experience as well. Creating that wow experience for bringing someone on board, for giving them the training and the support they need. If you don't have a CRM platform, get one. And then finally, give your team the coaching and training they deserve to succeed. Andrea went through statistics. Not great. Less than 60% pass that test the first time. And that's horrifying. I mean, first of all, we have test reluctance to begin with. And I remember when the SAFE Act passed, and I did a lot of coaching all of us had to take it. And so I did a lot of coaching for hundreds, probably thousands of people going through that. And the biggest thing is I haven't taken a test in a long time. And so you have to prepare for how you read a question and then come to the best possible answer for the test. And the test is not easy, and those questions are written by attorneys. So they write in double negatives all the time. So just reading through those questions can be difficult. But if they don't pass the test the last time, that's really hard. And it's like, okay, now I've got to start all over again. So it's hard on their confidence. So give them the coaching and the training that they need to succeed. Coaching to me, and I love this quote, it's the universal language of change and learning. So build and coach your team. You all have an incredible amount of experience. So honestly, if you want to build and coach your team, have a call once a week. Frank Gray started, it used to be Think Big, Work Small. Now it's the Real Estate Post, I think is what they call it. That whole company was started because Frank was wanting to coach his team, and he started doing video was first starting, and he was doing to shake it up. And so think about what you can do as far as coaching your team and bringing your culture in. I think that's so important. Give them the tools they need to succeed. Create your total package of everything. It'll help you in recruiting, having the marketing, the technology support, having access to information. That includes scenarios and questions. And Andrea, that's one of the things that Mortgage Fundamentals goes through in depth, which they don't get in 20 hours, is what are all the products? What is FHA? What is VA? What is USDA? How do you do mortgage math? All of those things are so important, not just in passing the test, but really preparing for their job, right?
Absolutely. We do a good job of presenting the different loan programs, conventional, FHA, VA. They learn the guidelines from the perspective of the originator. What do I need to know about each of those loan programs to originate a loan? And once we've done that and they've had an overview, we have an entire module on case studies where they're presented with a scenario. This is the borrower scenario, credit scores are this, income is that, time on the job. The same way everything you'd get when you were pre-qualifying somebody. So we have a whole bunch of scenarios that they're going to go through. It's one whole module. What loan program would you recommend and why? And they're going to put their answers to that in, and then they get the answers at the end. But because it's important, it's not just knowing the loan program and guidelines, it's knowing how to apply them too. So yeah, absolutely. Having access to that kind of information is important.
Very good. So really, guys, it's all about creating that team, making that wow experience. I want to thank all of our partners to be able to put this information together for the Becoming Independent series. We have completed the 5-part series. If you have not been on our 5-part series as far as Becoming Independent, then you can register for that at mortgagetoolkits.com and get access to all the recordings. So we've been through the 5 parts. Now we're kind of taking a one off and going into some different things. I'm going to start it up again in the fall, and we're going to get into some of the other things that you need. Now you're up and running, so what's the next step? And Andrea, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Summit Mortgage Training, and you offer the mortgage fundamentals, the NMLS pre-licensing, continuing education, exam prep. You also have your new originator sales coaching, compliance training, product training, everything you need as far as getting started and staying going. So, and you can find out information at Summit Mortgage Training. I'm going to send you a link. It looks like I cut that off on this particular slide. So we are going to send a follow-up email. We'll have links to everything here, and so we'll be sending that out. I'm going to have a copy of the recording because I know I got a couple emails from people that couldn't make it on this, so we are recording it, and I'll send a follow-up to you for that recording as well. And then also to remind you, we do have upcoming webinars in June. We have our Purchase Power with FHA loans, June 21st, and then also Busting VA Home Loan Misconceptions on June 26th. And, these are the great kind of sessions if you have someone new to be able to put them on there as well. And so, Andrea, again, I want to thank you for all of you who joined us today. I want to thank you for joining and wish you a very safe weekend. I'm excited. My son is coming home tomorrow for his birthday and for Father's Day, and so I'm looking forward to seeing him. And for all of our fathers out there, we wish you a very happy Father's Day, and we look forward to seeing you on a next call. So, Andrea, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.